Hey, third graders, it's Mrs. Linderman. Welcome to a new week. We're going to start a new story this week. It's called Manjhi Moves a Mountain. And it's got so many good things that we can talk about in this story. Talking about the setting, obviously the characters, the plot. Do you remember Plot Mountain when we were writing our personal narratives? Right? Plot Mountain, all those details, what the story is all about, how we climbed up. Remember the one side with the rising action and then the falling action. We're going to revisit that. We're also going to talk about some vocabulary. We're going to talk about theme in a story, challenges that the characters might face. And there's so much in this story that I think we're going to spend 2 weeks working on it. And today, as you listen to the story, I want you to pay special attention to the illustrations. Because remember, an illustration can tell us a lot about what's happening in the story, not just the words. And I want you to be thinking about the story. Is this a fiction story or a nonfiction story? Okay, it's called Manjhi Moves a Mountain. It's by Nancy Chernin, and it's illustrated by Danny Popovici. Okay, I want you to sit back and listen and think. Deep in the heart of India, a mighty mountain separated two villages. On Manjhi's side, nothing grew. People were hungry. Children gave up walking the 40 long miles to school on the other side of the mountain. Adults groaned on the jagged long climb to plow the fields or shop at the market. On the upper side, rice and wheat flowered and flourished. People's bellies were full and their pockets jangled with money. So if you look at the illustrations, can you see the mountain dividing this part of the city and this city? They look very different. Every day, Manjhi paused at the top of the mountain to catch his breath and gaze at the two villages. Why should some people have so much and others have so little? Again, here's one side of the mountain, here's the village on the other side. I need to notice what the illustrator did, not just with the pictures that he drew, but with the colors that he used. Manjhi tried to think of an answer as he made his way down the mountain to plant and harvest on the other side. If only the two villages were closer. If only the road between them were easier. If only there were a way to move the mountain. Frustrated, he picked up a stone and threw it down. Crack! He saw a sprinkle of powder. He knelt down and felt it between his fingers. That was it. So I can see him. He's thrown that rock down. Right? What kind of a word is crack? Remember when we have a word that sounds like what it's really doing? That's an onomatopoeia. See if you can find any more onomatopoeias in this story as I read. Manjhi hurried to his hut to search for something to trade. He had nothing anyone would want except 3 goats. He gently looped ropes around their necks and searched until he found someone who would trade a worn hammer and chisel for them. He hurried back to the top of the mountain. He positioned the chisel. He aimed. He swung the hammer. Clink! Powdered rock and tiny chips sprayed. Over and over, Manjhi swung until it was too dark to see. Clink, clank, clunk. Some more onomatopoeias. I love the constellations. His sweaty, throbbing fingers rubbed the rough rock. He felt a dent. It was small and bumpy, but it was there. 2 inches, 3 inches. His shoulders ached. His head pounded, but his heart was lighter. He picked his way down the mountain and across the dirt path. He tumbled into bed. All too soon, a rooster crowed. What does that tell us? It's morning time, right? Manjhi rubbed his eyes. His hands were raw with blisters. Still, he climbed the mountain. He gripped the hammer and pounded the chisel for hours. Hold, aim, swing. Then he scrambled down to hoe, water, and weed on the other side. As soon as he could, he rushed back up. Hold, aim, swing. Day after day, Manjhi clutched the hammer and chisel. Hold, aim, swing. Night after night, he slid dusty fingers into the hole, measuring 1 foot, 2 feet. After a week, he could crouch inside 4 feet, 5 feet. You're crazy, people told him. A man can't change a mountain. It's there before he's born and after he dies. But Manjhi could see something they couldn't. The parting of the mountain into 2 great halves with a road in between. A road where people could get to work, to market, to school, even to the hospital more easily. Nothing could stop him. Not words, not time, not even the mountain, which sent chips and powder tumbling down his shoulders, whitening his hair. A year passed. Every day, Manjhi was a little stronger, and the hole a little deeper and longer. 10 feet forward, 20 feet forward. 10 years passed. Still, it was too far for children to walk to school. The sick often couldn't get to the clinic in time, and the villagers spent countless hours climbing to work in the fields and shop in the markets. But Manjhi didn't slow down. Hold, aim, swing. He pushed forward, 30 feet forward, 50 feet forward. The sides of the hole towered over his body. Let's see. He's been digging 10 years. After 15 years, people started to see what he had seen. Adults who had been children when he began marveled. Children who had never known a time when he wasn't striking the mountain watched in awe. Notice what these children are doing. Look at Manjhi now. Think about how the illustrator is showing us that time has passed in this story. "100 feet forward, 200 feet forward." Now, each time he returned to his task, Manjhi could see that helping hands had made the hole a little longer than he'd left it. He found food waiting for him too. Baskets of warm roti dripping with melted ghee, tins of spicy dal tickle his nose. Once he unwrapped a cloth to find a shiny new hammer and chisel glinting in the sun. So people are noticing. They're kind of bringing food and gifts, things that are going to help him with his project. By the 22nd year, whispers swept through both villages. Every day, more people gathered. Parents lifted little ones on their shoulders so they could see the other side. They wondered if this would be the day. Hold, aim, swing. Men, women, children held their breath. Manjhi could hear his heart beating as loudly as the hammer hitting the rock. Oh, look at his heart is beating. How? As loudly as the hammer. So they're comparing, right, his heart to a beating hammer, right? Remember, that's called a simile. We learned about that a couple weeks ago. Hold, aim, swing. So they're all watching. He's still working. Swoosh! Another onomatopoeia. Where once a mighty mountain stood, there was nothing but open space and broken rocks. Manjhi looked from one village to the other, but for the first time, there weren't two villages. There was just one, sharing water, hopes, dreams, and a man who had moved a mountain. Right? Here is the author, Nancy Chernin. Here's the illustrator, Danny Popovici. Think about how the story ends. 22 years, right? Here's the path from one side to the other. It's no longer dividing these two villages. I want to read to you a little bit. At the end of this story, it's called the author's note. And quite often, an author has more to share and they want you to know some more information. So let's read about this. Remember, I asked you to think about if this was a fiction story or a nonfiction story. Dasrath Manjhi was born in 1934 and died August 17th, 2007, at the age of 73. Only a chisel and a hammer, or using only a chisel and a hammer, he took 22 years, from 1960 to 1982, to cut a road 360 feet long, 30 feet high, and 25 feet wide through a mountain that blocked Galore, his village near Gaya, in Bihar, India, from Wazaganj, which had running water, doctors, a school, and jobs. For most of those years, Manjhi was ridiculed for pursuing an impossible goal. Not only was he a poor laborer, he was a Sudura, from one of the lowest castes in Hindu society. Those who follow the caste system believed people must live in certain places and have different access to jobs, schools, hospitals, and land according to the group in which they were born. Manjhi began his task for his wife, Falguni, who died in 1959, supporting his dream. For some, the story of Manjhi's parting of the mountain is a love story done in dedication to his wife, who had difficulty getting medical care. It's been compared to how the great emperor Shah Jahan of India built the Taj Mahal as a tomb for his wife, Mumtaz Mahal, from 1632 to 1643. Another image that comes to mind is that of the Hindu god Krishna, who is said to have lifted Mount Gavaryans to shelter a group of villagers from the rain. What began as a labor for Manjhi's wife evolved into a determination to help his entire village, one of about 60 in the rocky, remote area. By shortening a treacherous 34-mile trek to a manageable 9-mile walk across a safe road, he changed everyone's lives for the better and gave them hope that there was nothing that couldn't be done if you believed and persevered. When the Indian government gave Manjhi land as a reward for his impressive achievement, he donated it to his village for a hospital to be built there. The road he had carved made it easier for teachers to come to his village, creating a new school. Not only did the road make it easier for the villagers to reach the world, it made it easier for the world to come to them. Manjhi is honored in his village and all across India as the Mountain Man. So what do you think? Is this a fiction story? It's a nonfiction true story, right? based on Manjhi's life. Okay? He took it upon himself to do something and make his situation better. And it took him how long? 22 years, right? But he didn't give up. He persevered. He was determined. So think about character traits that would describe Manjhi, right? Brave, dedicated. There's a lot of them that we could discuss. Remember the list we talked about last week and we shared? Right? Think about Manjhi as a character. Okay? I want you to be thinking today also about all those beautiful illustrations and how they help us to understand the story.